Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Beyond Rock Bottom podcast. My name is Zach. I'm a person in recovery, and this is.
I'm Markus. I'm also a person in recovery.
Thank you for watching our first episode of our show. We're going to start off with a little introduction about ourselves and then go forward and talk about what this podcast is all going to be all about. Like I said, my name is Zach. I'm a person in recovery.
Hey, Zach.
I have a sobriety date of 11/15 of 24, so that hits me at 5 months today, actually. So I'm pretty early in recovery, but I'm not new to trying to get sober. A little bit about myself is I started doing drugs and alcohol at a very young age. By 14, I had tried heroin and other substances, and I landed myself in quite a bit of trouble with the law, and I went to my first treatment center. I'm 26 now, so I've been trying to get this shit since, and it's been a ride. It's been pretty crazy, pretty miserable, but I really do believe that it all happened for a purpose, and that's kind of the reason we're starting this podcast, is because we think it's pretty important to recover out loud and tell our stories. So hopefully it could help somebody else,
Just to simplify, what are some things you struggle with? Like growing up to it?
Growing up and stuff, like I think like right when the second I tried a substance, I immediately loved it. I had a lot of stuff from my childhood that I felt like I needed to numb, and right when I tried marijuana and alcohol, it was a wrap, I loved it, and I kind of fell into the music scene too, and that kind of like glorified a lot of drug use and everything, and I think that I just always thought it was cool, it was always around me, and I just thought that's what life was about, was doing drugs, getting high, and like that's what all the cool kids did, I guess, but the fun ended pretty quickly, I obviously I started using some pretty heavy substances at 14, there's not a whole lot of fun that comes with doing those types of drugs like heroin, meth. The party is essentially over, it's a lot of isolation and loneliness that comes with those types of addictions, but anyways, I've been trying to get this shit since, I'm not going to get into my whole story because I think we're both individually going to talk about that in the future, but basically where my addiction led me to in the most recent years, is I ended up strung out on fentanyl and meth, I was an IV meth and fentanyl user, and yeah, you can imagine that doesn't get you into the best situations. It led me to jails, institution, and nearly death, I lost a lot of people that I loved because of addiction, and I've overdosed more times than I can count. And this most recent time, so like I said, I was I like all drugs, but the two main ones that I would consider my drug of choice, were meth and fentanyl. And I will say right now I have a few years clean off of fentanyl, but when I got clean off fentanyl, I got onto the methadone maintenance program, which probably saved my life in the beginning, I really do think that I would be dead if it wasn't for me getting on medically assisted treatment. But there's some negative side effects that come with that too, and I continued to increase my dose on methadone, and it got to a point where it was basically like I felt like I was getting the same exact consequences, or not the same exact consequences, but there was a lot of similar consequences that came with me being on methadone, as like very similar to like when I was on fentanyl, you know. And I got really tired of being tired all the time. Every time I would sit down, I would just nod out, and people were calling me out on it, you know. And they were like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know, like, are you on fentanyl again? And I'm like, no, man, like I'm not on fentanyl again. I'm doing this thing that the doctors prescribed me, you know, and it's supposed to be helping me. And it kind of like turned its back on me, you know. And in my drug addict mind, instead of in my drug addict mind, the way to solve that problem was to just start using meth again to counteract the side effects, you know. I know that probably sounds crazy to a lot of normal people, but it really did make a lot of sense in my head when
Normal people.
right. But I mean, like looking at it now, having like a clear mind and being sober, it's crazy, you know.
Fuck yeah.
Who the fuck? Like nobody does methamphetamine casually, you know.
Right.
Like, anyways, that was my solution, you know. So I'm on a high dose of methadone, over 200 milligrams, and taking that daily, and I'm also shooting up meth on a daily basis to counteract the side effects of the methadone, and or at least that was the reason in the beginning, you know. And eventually it just ended up because obviously I'm a meth addict too, you know. So in my brain that was my justification, you know, like, okay, I'm using the meth to counteract the side effects, you know. But I liked it, you know. Like I was enjoying what it was doing for me, you know. When I first started, but like I remember when I was younger, like before I got into like needles and IV drug use, I think things didn't go like burn to the ground as quickly, and when I started doing this, like it was just very apparent that like something was not okay with me, you know. Like I thought I was making a fool out of myself, nodding out on the methadone, but when I started using meth again and shooting up, life went downhill very quickly. And to make a long story short, you know, in the weeks coming prior to my most recent sobriety date, you know, I found myself hating life, you know. I didn't want to live, but I also didn't want to think about living without substances to numb the way I was feeling. And just to like paint a picture of like what my life was like in the end before I got sober, I would lock myself in a restroom and sit there for hours, man, just trying to hit myself, you know. And I was crying, and there was nothing fun about it at all.
What does hit myself mean for the people who don't know?
So when I say that, sorry, it basically means I was trying to like find a vein, you know, so I could shoot up meth. And you know, I thought in the moment that it was because like I had blown through all my veins, but I've realized since getting sober, you know, like I've got my health back, and that really wasn't necessarily the reason. It was more because because when you do meth, you know, you lack all your nutrients, you don't drink any water, you don't do anything, you know, anything healthy for you. So basically, like, I couldn't find a vein because my nutrients were so off, you
right.
know?
That makes sense.
I would just sit in there for hours just poking myself and crying, dude. And so this is how. Also, I'm married, right? And I'm playing off this whole story. My wife thinks that I'm sober, you know, or she knows I'm on methadone, right? But she doesn't know that of my genius plan to use meth to counteract the side effects. You know, she just thought that I like finally got used to the medication or whatever. Anyways, I was miserable with how I was living, and I had another like grand idea in my head, right? Well, like I'm tired of living like this. I'm tired of doing meth every day, you know. But I can't show up to work um, normal. I'll just be all bitchy to my coworkers. I want to fall asleep and everything, you know. Like I've been shooting up meth for months. Like I'm gonna have to come down, you know. But I also have to show up to work and I have to show up to my responsibilities without like throwing a red flag to my wife and stuff, you know. So in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna go pick up a bunch of Xanax to counteract the side effects from the meth, you know.
Hell yeah.
And that's still like I'm not a fucking doctor, you know. Like I'm really not, you know. And but for some reason I thought I was in that moment, and it sounds crazy to say it out loud now, but in that moment it really did seem like the smartest move for me to make. But my higher power definitely had some different plans for me, you know. I went to go pick up that Xanax and pick it up. Of course, in my brain, I'm saying I'm only gonna take a couple quarters, you know, like quarter here, quarter there, nothing crazy like I used to, you know. By the time I got home, driving home, I had already popped 2 bars, which is a decent amount for somebody that hasn't been taking Xanax in a while, you know. So already feeling those, and I get a call from my wife halfway home, you know, and she's like, where are you? And I'm like, oh fuck. Like I already knew, just like she found something out, you know. And she had basically, like, I was fucking all tweaked out, and I was hiding syringes in different spots around the house, right? And I got messy, and I basically like forgot about some of them that I left in a certain spot.
Some
right?
of them is crazy.
Well, like, yeah. Anyways, she found my needles, dude, and we're still on the phone. I'm driving home, and I'm like, fuck. Like, I hang up the phone, and I walk into the apartment, dude, and oh my god, she has all my needles laid out.
How many was it?
Dude, like at least like 20.
Dude,
like,
so crazy.
Like, yeah, man. I don't know, like being high on meth, I think like there's a lot of logic that goes in to it, you know.
Yeah, bro.
In my brain, right? I'm
makes
like,
perfect sense.
In my brain, and I'm like, okay, well, I can keep this one for like a rainy day or something, you know. Like I used like I would buy needles, right? And I'd have a pack of like brand new needles, but like I would still be like, yo, I'll save this one just in case I run out of the 100 pack that I fucking have, you know? So I'd have them hidden all over the place like a fucking tweaker. And
Fair.
she found them, you know, and this is also kind of a gross part, but I think it's important for me to mention because this is where addiction takes some of us. You know, my wife was drug testing me at the time, and she had been the entire time I was on methadone, you know, because like going back, you know, she had been through multiple fentanyl overdoses with me, and she's seen me struggle basically the entire time we've been together, and she's literally found me dead on the ground, you know, and I had to call the paramedics, and I can't tell you the amount of times that's happened, you know, where I come to and there's just paramedics and cops and my wife screaming and stuff, you know, like I put her through a lot of trauma, so she had every right to continue to drug test me for however long. Anyways, so another grand idea, right? When I decide I want to start using the meth to counteract the methadone, I was like, I gotta have clean pee, you know? So I got, and mind you, I have to be testing dirty for methadone when I take these tests. Like I can't just get somebody else's clean pee. So I decided I'm gonna get like a bunch of like water bottles like that. And before I relapsed, I filled them all up with my pee. So when I got home, she had all my syringes laid out, all these bottles of pee.
Oh my
dude.
god, dude. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, she had. Yeah, it was a whole scene, dude.
Definitely.
Like, to quote a certain program, it wasn't a vision for you at all, dude. Like, anyways, I thought in that moment, just because everything that I had put my life through in the past, and I really thought my life was over. I didn't think like I had anything to live for going forward after that. And the last grand idea I had before I got sober was that I just wanted to end my life, and I remember her just like screaming at me and crying, and like it was like one of those movies you can just like wow, like I don't even, like I had this thought in my head, I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna fucking kill myself. And I had like about like 9 or 10 Xanax bars on me, and a bunch of take home methadone bottles. And I remember just like hitting the wall and coming down and like sitting next to my dog, and I just like took all my methadone and my Xanax, fucking tried to kill myself. Then everything went black, and I woke up in a hospital. Like, thank God I didn't succeed in killing myself. That was probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me. It really opened up my eyes, and I woke up in this hospital, and one of my good friends came in there, and he basically like gave me this, like, not an ultimatum, but like do you want to try to get clean, and I was like fuck, I failed at killing myself, what else options do I really have? So I was like, yeah, like, whatever. And mind you, like, I'm still on like 200 something milligrams of methadone, and I'm about to start withdrawing off this shit because I haven't had my dose. And I decided I'm going to a fucking detox in Austin, and I went to this fucking amazing detox that, like, I thank God every day for those people because they had to walk through hell with me, but I went through a really horrific detox coming off methadone, and I honestly think, like, all in all, it was about 15 to 20 days of just withdrawing off that shit, until I finally felt like somewhat decent, but after I went through that detox facility, I ended up at a treatment center, and that's really where, like, my mind just started to open up, and like I realized I gotta change everything. Like, I can't just like pick and choose what parts of life I want to keep and get rid of. I got a sponsor when I went in there, and I started working 12 steps, and I'm not going to get too much into that, but that's really what I give the credit to saving my life. I was able to open up about stuff that I never thought I would open up about, and there was a lot of freedom in that. And going forward, that was about 4 months ago, and now I decided I wasn't gonna go back to where I'm originally from California, but I was at this time living in a different part of Texas, and I wasn't gonna go back there, so I decided to move out here to beautiful Lubbock, Texas.
Beautiful.
No, I'm just kidding. It's all right.
It's not bad.
They got Texas Tech.
Right.
But yeah, I'm out here, and my life is better than it's ever has been, and I don't say that like I got all the shit, right? I don't got all the material things that I want, but like for the first time ever, I can like look at myself in the mirror and like honestly like who I see, and I have the honor of like helping other people, and going to H&Is and sponsoring guys, and I don't know. My life is a blessing today, and yeah, that's basic. That's all I want to get into about my story. Sorry, I feel like it might have gone a little bit long there, but that's a simplified version.
Yeah, there is some other stuff you told me that's like off the wall, so
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm Marcus, and I'm also a person in recovery. Man, where to start? How do I follow that at all? But so I'm 29 years old. I turned 30 in July. I started smoking weed and drinking alcohol like at 14. I didn't really get any real consequences until I was like, I think 18 is when I got my first misdemeanor possession of marijuana charge. But from 14 to 18, there was a lot of partying. There was, experimenting with different substances and a lot of insecurity, man. Since even before drugs and alcohol, just insecurity through the roof. But you wouldn't have known that if you had known me at that time. You would have no clue. My mom, we talk about it sometimes, and she's like, no, I was not able to tell. Like, I was wearing a lot of masks at the time. A lot of masks of like, it came off like it's cocky, boastful, and just I never knew, I was just projecting my own insecurities out there, right? Just hoping that if I can make myself look this way, everyone else will believe it too. Which they probably didn't, because I didn't have too many friends. I was pretty known where I was from, but like I just had my own group of friends for some reason. And there was something we heard on that podcast the other day that like I either looked up to you or looked down on you, but I never saw no one as equal. I was like terminally unique, like I was suffering. I was afraid of everything, mind you. But it's funny because I was afraid of everything, but I was also like a crazy, like adrenaline junkie, crazy daredevil. I was a skateboarder. I would like car surf on cars. Anyways, my addiction like showed up in different ways, right? Today I have a sobriety date of August 15th of 2024. And for that, man, I'm really grateful. Since I was 14, I hadn't been clean for like when I started, I hadn't been. So I think there was this one period before I got with my ex, the one I have a child with. We were together. I think I was like 6 months sober, just on like religion, but that didn't work for long. I think that's like a vague memory. So the things I battled with were like depression, insecurities, fear, and like just warped beliefs about my reality. I was raised in a specific way, and I looked up to specific people that I really shouldn't have. And to simplify it, I glorified drug use, criminal life, and all that kind of lifestyle. And I was very impressionable as a kid. Like I didn't look around and like make my own opinions about life. Like I was like what was taught to, and it was funny because like it wasn't things that were directly taught to me. It's like, hey, this is how things work, this is how it is. If you were someone I looked up to and you did something a certain way, I adopted it, and I thought it was like true. I thought that's the way things worked. Unfortunately, I looked up to people I shouldn't have, and I'll get more into that maybe in a later episode. But I started receiving consequences at 18. County stuff, misdemeanors here and there. And my drug use kind of ramps up. It goes, I start blacking out at parties like when I was like 16, 17 with alcohol, Mad Dog 2020 and Four Locos and stuff. And then K2 Spice came into the picture. K2 came in, yeah, I know. That's the original name for it, right? Yeah. K2. Remember, I don't know if you, did they ever call it House Blend where you were from?
Yeah,
House Blend
in the smoke shops, yeah.
Crazy. Anyways,
that's like different stuff though. Like
yeah, that's like the homemade stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that came around like in my sophomore year, so I was probably like 15, 16, and that I took off with it. My cousins and brother, we were all doing it together. Anyways, just, marijuana, alcohol, K2, I was experimenting with Xanax and ecstasy. Ecstasy was kind of like, this is amazing, this is great. I was going to raves, I was selling ecstasy. I was getting it from this dude called Candyman, like this grown ass dude, and I was just like a kid, man, and I was getting like hundreds of pills. And anyways, so that was kind of like, I love this is what I want to do forever. I'm going out to South Padre Island for a couple of days on end during spring break, and like hardly, I don't remember much at all, just like snippets here and there, but like I would come back home with money, right? Like with more money I left with, feeling good, feeling great, and I was just a mischievous child, man. And like there's a couple of people that I grew up with that know, like we intentionally went out, we trespassed, vandalized, just for shits and giggles, dude. It was crazy. But so life goes on, and what's funny too about my story is, I don't really do good in high school at all. But mainly because I don't care. I think somehow, some way, something's gonna happen in the future. And I'm gonna make it big, right? I don't know where I got that belief from, but that was my truth. I would walk into school without a backpack, without a pencil. They would give a quiz out during class. I would sleep and walk out and throw it in the trash, right? But somehow, some way, I get a really good score on my ACT. I think it was a 27, 26, or 28. I think it was a 27. So I got a full paid academic scholarship to college there. I didn't go to college for more than like 2 days. Sorry, Mom. My mom was giving me rides to college and stuff, and I think that was her attempt to hold me accountable. And there's a lot of like me lacking accountability in my story. Like I did not want it. Like, I would manipulate, lie, and flip the script on anybody who tried to hold me accountable to any of my negative behaviors, which I had a lot of. So I went to college, right? And then some time passes, I'm starting to experiment with cocaine. I go to college again, same story. I think this time though I made it like 4 days in class instead of just 2.
Hell yeah.
But doing cocaine in the parking lot of the school, man, like it just like, oh, I'm not gonna go in there, fuck that, like, and just assuming something was gonna happen that was gonna work out, right? Everything was gonna work out. And by this time, like, I'm serving tables and I'm good at that, I'm making money. And it's funny though, because I don't exactly know how much money I was making because I was always partying. Like, that's all my money went to. Yeah, so, and I'm growing up, some of my family members are involved with the criminal world, right? There's connections being made. I'm gaining larger and larger quantities of drugs. My friends know me for that guy, right? And so, drugs are just being used, like, in large quantities. Let's see. And so I'm like in my early 20s, just partying. I remember I started working at a specific restaurant. I'm not gonna name it right now because it's well known in the United States. But I was throwing parties. I hosted my first one, I think, for my birthday, and I was with my ex at the time, and it was at my apartment, and it went really well. And I was like, oh, I'm good at this, right? So just kept hosting more and more. And in this hosting of parties, I started like abusing cocaine. Like, I'm using a lot. I'm using during work. I'm using like at least a gram a night, dude, consecutively, like for weeks, and an 18-pack. And then I would still stay up past the sun, and I would go get more beer to fall asleep, right? And in this era though of my life, like from 21, from like 24, because I think I started using meth when I was like around 24. Dude, it's a huge blur. No, not really any real responsibilities. Nothing really real going on in my life, and like the insecurity kind of went away because I had a lot of friends. They liked me. We were always getting. Well, I assumed they liked me, right? But in reality, we were all just having fun, getting fucked up. So that's my story. There was a lot of partying at that time, and let's see. But I remember too when I'm sitting there by myself, like at times. And the thing is, I at this point in my life, I wasn't really ever alone, so I didn't have to sit with myself and my own thoughts. Just rewind a little bit, in high school, I remember I kind of struggled with like suicidal tendencies and thoughts. I just didn't want to be alive. What's weird though for my story is like nothing weird happened. Like nothing like bad or shitty in my life happened that made me want to do that. That's just how I felt. I just grew up feeling uncomfortable in my skin, always assuming people didn't like me, I didn't fit in, I'm not good enough. And like this carried on to like my extracurriculars. Like I remember I was in football for like a couple weeks, like in middle school. And I just didn't want, I was pretty good too. I'm a fast kid, I was like, quick out there, I can catch the ball. I played a couple of games and I didn't do too bad. I made some hits, and but no, I don't want to do that, because that's like competitive sports. Like that's for lame people. That's for preps. It's kind of how I worded it too at that time. I wanted to be like a rebellious outlaw, and which is weird. I don't know why I wanted to be that. When for a long time I felt like I was running from that feeling, like I was like alone and not understood ever. And in my life, like good things would come in, like a girl, or like I get a nice car, and and my mom loved me, bro. Like if I had looked up to that woman, maybe I'd be in a different spot, but I didn't. So I had good things in my life, but still there was just this feeling that I just didn't want to be here. Beautiful girlfriends through the years, just I never wanted or needed more than I had, because I had a lot. My mom did a lot for me. My dad did, although he did a lot more than just give me things. I'll get into that later, but I had what I needed, right? And it's so my addiction is weird because like it's crept in and like my beliefs were warped. You know, I would spend money faster than I made it, and I kind of still struggle with that actually, but I'm working on it. And so I remember a couple of things happened in my life around like 23, 22. My ex and I were trying to have a kid, and she had a miscarriage, and that was kind of rough. You know, maybe I'll get into details about that later, but my mom and I were talking about it a couple months ago, and I think that's kind of maybe where something like hit, because this is when I couldn't hold a job anymore. It was just all about cocaine and alcohol. I went from a couple of jobs like in a couple of months, like 3 or 4 jobs in like 3 months, and then I remember one night I'm drunk, and shoot, I'm a tweaker, right? Like I like to go fast, right? So if I'm low and drunk, like I want to get high, I want to go back up. So I call my brother for some cocaine, and he's like, yeah, let's go, come pick me up. So I go pick him up, we go to this place, and the kind of addict I am, dude, like growing up through the years, like when I tried something new, I researched it, I looked into it, and found every way to use it, found every way to like use it at the best rate, you know, saving it, making it stretch, bongs, water, whatever, right? Gravity bongs, you know, the knife trick on the stove. You ever heard that one?
The research.
Yeah, so I was, so that was with ecstasy, with acid, like mushrooms, like everything I tried, I researched it, right? So my brother, I go pick him up, we're gonna go do cocaine, so I think, right? And we drive, dude, all the way across town. It's like 3 or 4 cities over, bro. And it's probably like 4 a.m. I was like, you know what, like, I'll make it back home. I'm on time for my girl to go to work. And we get there, and as we park the car, he's like, just so you know, like, we're not gonna do cocaine. And I was like, fuck it, I'm down. Like, I don't even care. You know, I'm drunk, bro. And it was funny is like when walking into the apartment, like, or the house, like, I literally did not care. Like, what were we about to go do? What am I about to get myself into?
So at this point, you didn't know what, like, he just said we're not doing cocaine.
And I didn't even ask. I was like, okay. I was like, am I gonna get high? I think that's exactly what I told him. Am I gonna get high? He's like, yeah, you're gonna get fucking high. I was like, okay, bet, whatever. I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I didn't even ask him like what we were gonna do. We walk in, and bro, like in this time of my life, like I'm moving so much on autopilot. Like I can't even tell you how this like night in my life came about. You know, I walk into this place, and it's a trap house. You know, but the people that were there were people I knew. I grew up with these people. In like high school, they were my brother's friends, so they were younger than me, and I knew them well. And then, I only have a memory of my friends rolling a bowl, right? And we're in this nasty trap house. There's a mattress on the floor, and I think he's on a chair that's on top of the mattress. I can't even tell you why. I don't know. And he's rolling the bowl, and I remember at the time he had like a minuscule amount of meth in the pipe. So I just didn't know what was going on, but I hear like, you know, they did it for me, and immediately, bro, I was like, I love this. But I've had that I love this feeling for other substances too, like cocaine, ecstasy, you know, acid. I was like, I love this. I want to do this all the time. But when I say do this all the time, like I fucking took off with it, bro. Like, so I was, you know, in the years prior doing cocaine, drugs, alcohol, weed, like fine, I can still show up to your birthday and smile and say hi, you know, love you, have a happy birthday, Christmas, Thanksgiving. I was there, you know, me and my brothers would go smoke weed before we had to eat, and we'd eat like 5 plates. But yeah, I was okay still. Yeah. Even when I was like before we had that abortion, like I would do cocaine and go to work. Like it got to the point where I would just fuck everything, right? So
it was somewhat manageable.
Somewhat, yeah. That's kind of where I noticed the unmanageability start to spike, and so yeah, I got high on meth, and I loved it, and I needed more. I wanted more. I loved the way it made me feel. Like I remember getting high and like going to Walmart. I would go to like Walmart if I needed like a Coca-Cola. Like I can stop at the gas station for it, but I would go to Walmart because there was more people. And like I felt good, dude, around people on this drug. Like I could talk to anybody. I finally felt comfortable in my own skin, right? I hate to sound cliche, but a lot of people say that, but I guess like, you know, us being addicts and alcoholics, like we have some things in common, but I loved it, you know? So I'm doing this, I'm going out downtown, you know, I'm leaving my girlfriend and my kid at home, and I'm just doing it more and more. And I remember the first night, I ran out like at maybe midnight. But for me personally, for some reason, like this was like with all drugs, like cocaine, ecstasy, like I still couldn't sleep even though like I sobered up. Like it was probably like 10 in the morning, and I still couldn't go to sleep. I had ran out at midnight, right? And I couldn't sleep, like, cause I was just stuck in here, obsessing about how I can get more. What can I do? And like literally, bro, hitting up random people that I don't know if they have meth or not, but I'm gonna find out. You know, I can't even tell you what my first meth dealer looked like, but so it got worse, and I started, you know, just fucking my family over more. Started getting more involved in selling drugs just to support my own habit. Either like I wasn't really good at it to like make a killing off it until right later on down. It doesn't matter, but so yeah, and then dude, I used meth for like maybe 4 years. Yeah, before I ever went into the rooms for the first time, to the rooms of recovery, and those 4 years were so like maybe 5 years, but the first 3 years, like for sure. And I went and I served 8 months on a state jail sentence in 2020, and I think that was already after a year I had been using, like a full year I was using, and then I went and I did my time the next year in 2020 during COVID, which fucking sucked.
That's crazy.
It was terrible.
I feel like most people were getting released during COVID.
Yeah, in March too. Like I remember being in right there watching the TV, and like remember those protests about that guy that they killed, where they choked him, was like, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Like that ad came on like for the 14 minutes when it was just black, whatever. Anyways, so those 4 years, you know, I just got worse and worse. But okay, so I was gonna say that for like those first 3 years, I didn't have a problem. I couldn't hold a job. Fuck your birthday party. Fuck Easter. Fuck Thanksgiving. Fuck Christmas. I don't want to see you because mom, you're gonna know I'm high. Oh, you know, I go to someone's house for some reason, family member, friends. I'm taking some of your shit so I can support my habit. And what's so funny too is like I'll do this, go get drugs, get home, get high, and then feel bad about it and like cry about it and like sit there and bask in how much of a piece of shit I am. So depression, insecurity, these things are rampant in my story. And just sitting there with myself was so painful, dude. So painful. And like what's funny too is like my solution for that was just get more high and isolate more. And like it was crazy, man. I got down to like 160 pounds. I'm 214 right now for reference, and okay, so what's funny is like I'm in these stages of depression. I'm going up and down, right, because of the meth, and but still I'm fine. Nothing's wrong. Just complete denial of my reality. I couldn't hold a job. I think in those 3 years I probably had like, dude, shoot. There was so many times when I got a job, went to work, quit that same day, and I made XYZ excuse for it. And you know, I was a master manipulator, so like everyone just believed me until they didn't. You know, it got to a point where like my mom had to place a very hard, firm boundary with me, which, you know, I love her for that because it just made things hard for me, you know what I mean? And in turn, over time, it made me seek help. But I was basically shut out from my family, you know, every time, if I did even show up. I remember there was this birthday party that I had one year, and it was at my aunt's house. And everyone was there, but I was high on meth. I didn't sleep the night before. I had a meth pipe in my pocket and a couple of grams. And everyone's singing happy birthday, and I'm just super resentful, standing there. Like, I don't even know what I'm mad for. I don't even know why I'm sad. Like, I'm just depressed, sad, uncomfortable in my own skin. Can't wait to get out of there. As soon as they're done singing happy birthday, I go to the restroom and like smoke some dope, right? Yeah. So, let's see, I think 2023. In 2022, a lot of things happened to me. Not to say that, but I started acting in a way that was more desperate, more insecure, and more depressed. I started being more vocal about how I felt. I wanted to change, I just didn't know how, you know, and me being like who I am, I guess, I just sat with that for a while. But what's weird too, I also got better at hiding it. That last year and a half, like a lot of people thought I was okay, because I was still making sure to eat, sleep, and stuff, but I was still getting high. I was having benders. Like I'll have a month or two bender and like be sober for 3 weeks and just go back at it. And I had a big breakup with my ex, the one I have a child with, and for me that was a big deal too. So in my story, there's a lot of like me validating myself through other people, through stuff, through like girlfriends and even reputation. Like I took a validation off these things. Like if you thought this is who I was, like okay, bet. Like I'm happy with that. I don't want you to know how I feel. I don't want you to know how I view myself, because if you did, then you'd hate me just as much as I hate myself. And damn, it's fucking deep, right? But so where am I at? Lost my train of thought. So yeah, I do a lot of stuff that lead to a lot of like consequences on my end, particularly on my end. My ex kicks me out of her house. There was this fight that like pretty much traumatized my daughter. She remembers it to this day. I had to move in with a family member. A couple months in that relationship, I completely fucked her over. A lot of regret around that. I still haven't done my 9 step with that person, but coming soon. But and so around this point, like it was that year of 2022. Yeah, because 2022 summer and fall of 2022, just complete isolation, because I no longer have a girlfriend. I no longer have her car. I no longer have her house. You know what I mean? All these things that made me feel secure that I just took so far for granted, bro. So much for granted. I didn't have anymore. I was genuinely depending for myself. Like, yeah, my mom cared, my aunt cared, the one I was staying with, but like they didn't do, like, they knew they couldn't help me, because they knew if they gave me 20 bucks, I was gonna go buy dope. And then so time passes, I eventually like really fuck over my aunt, get kicked out of there, almost catch some charges for that. And so this is also too where in a time in my life where I'm like, okay, something needs to change. Like, it's clear and obvious that I'm the fucking problem. Like, well, honestly, no, let me not say that. It was more like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I hate this. I'm always sick and depressed. Like due to the point where like I feel physical symptoms of depression. Like I would sit there and cry for hours, and to the point where like smoking didn't help. Like there were some times where smoking dope wouldn't help. There were some times where I was depressed and I'd be getting high, and like I'd get super high and I'd be like, dude, I fucking hate this shit, and I'd go throw it in the trash, just to get the same amount the next day, another 8 ball.
I did that a lot.
Okay, cool. You can relate to that then. So there was still a lot of that going on, and my circumstances changed a little bit. I get clean for a while, like 3 months, and I started drinking again. And I assumed that like, I'm not the problem. All of y'all are the problem in meth. And life is the problem. Life is unfair to me. I'm a victim. Victim mentality is a huge part of my story too. I would put myself in a circumstance where I received heavy consequences, and still somehow it was not my fault. And why me, God, why me, type shit.
Yeah.
And so I use again. I get kicked out of that living situation. I was kind of living on my own with a friend, like in the building complex that he lived in. It was actually an abandoned old retirement home.
Nice.
That we were living in, dude. The shop, it was crazy, bro. It was so crazy. And then like walking down the hallways, like to go to your room, and
all creepy.
And dude, and then one night we heard a fucking sound in the building, and we went to a look, and someone else was living on the opposite side of the building. Yes, dude. Like, and that same apartment building, the same old retirement home. When I was younger, because it was in the neighborhood that I grew up in. When I was younger, me and my cousins and brother would go vandalize this building, and we would make our way in there. So like anyone realistically could get in there. So I mean, I don't know. Was I homeless? I don't know. Maybe I was taking showers.
It could be worse.
Yeah, it could be worse, definitely. I had electricity. No Wi-Fi, but electricity.
No
I was at this time in my life, the 3 months that I was clean, I watched like all of the Leprechaun movies. I watched, yeah, dude. On DVD.
While you're clean.
Yeah, while I'm clean.
I was gonna say while you're.
No, dude,
that's crazy.
I would get some food, and like I was doing pretty good, Like I was minding my business. I was feeling good. I was even going to the gym. And my friend had like this huge collection of DVDs. So I watched all of the Lord of the Rings. I watched all of the Leprechaun movies. I watched all of the Harry Potters. I watched all the Star Wars too. And this is in a span of like 3 months, dude. And I'm having a good time. I'm not. I'm going to work. I remember that birthday for my daughter. I was able to help with some stuff. pay for like the rental place and X, Y, Z, whatever. I'm driving around in my 1992 Pontiac Firebird, and I was gifted that car from my dad when I was a youth, but I was driving it still now, dude. The muffler was fucking hanging off and scratching the road.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, dude. So my first check I got, I went to go fix that, and I just felt like a king, bro. It was shortly after that when I started drinking again, and it dude, just quickly, bro. I started with 2 tall Bud Lights, living in this abandoned old retirement home. Started with 2 Bud Lights, tall Bud Lights, and oh shoot, and it quickly accelerated to 5. You know what I mean? And I get high on meth, lose the living situation, and I do it again. But on this, so I do it again. I get clean, I get a job, I do well, and I relapse again. And that's kind of when I got desperate, when I got scared, when I realized something needed to change. I remember I got on my knees and I prayed to the God of my understanding and asked for help. And in that moment, like, I was granted the willingness to like change, the willingness to like get better, the willingness to go to rehab. When I was praying, and there was I think the day before that, a friend of mine who's also an addict, she was going to rehab, and so that, I guess that was probably in my head too. So in that moment, I was like, you know what, I'll go to rehab too. And yeah, I guess that's kind of like what led me here a little bit.
And how has life changed since?
How has life changed since, bro?
Other
I don't want to get into that. Well, dude, life's better, man. I'm clean for 8 months. My daughter loves me. My ex like loves me in a healthy way. You know, she has a boyfriend. I have a girlfriend now. New people, but like we acclimate and we love each other from where we are. You know, dude, the level of understanding that I have for myself today is crazy. Cause like I can look back at the people I used to look up to and be like, you know what, they did because they thought that was real. They thought that was their truth. You know, yeah. I've learned how to forgive myself today. You know, I'm actually doing something today with my life. I also got clean. You know, I went through rehab several times. I went to rehab 7 times in the span of a year and a half. And, you know, that 7th time I got really desperate. I got really scared. And there was a common denominator. So every time I went to rehab, I did everything: meditation, prayer, community, all these things, even service work. But I did not work the steps. And so this time around, I was like, that's the only thing missing. That has to be it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see how this piece of paper with 1 through 12 written on it can help anybody, but I'm gonna give it my best shot. And best shot is what I gave it, man. I just hit the ground running. I did my 12 steps, started sponsoring dudes. I sponsored my first person. No, it wasn't you actually. I started sponsoring like at 4 months. It's crazy to think that 4 months has already passed by. I feel like I've known you longer, but. And dude, there's been so much freedom in that, so much more new principles that I'm applying to my life. Life is so much bigger today, and so one of the biggest things that I love about my recovery today, man, is I can sit with myself. Yeah. Like, I don't need someone there for me to feel good. Like, I feel good just chilling. Like I told you today, I went to Walmart, got a rotisserie chicken, and I was watching my TV show on my phone, and I felt like $1,000,000, man. There was nothing else I needed in the time, and you know, God's really been blessing me on my way, and it hasn't been easy. I'm learning how to be a man still, how to be financially stable, but I can like treasure these lessons and stay focused on them. And also too, a big thing about me now is like I'm not really boastful. Like my confidence is confidence. It's not cockiness. It's not boastfulness. It's not fake. It's genuine like love and care for myself to the point where I love it. You know, like it gives me motivation and discipline to keep going. Yeah, I'm almost coming up on 9 months, and that's exciting. Can we get that milestone, the celebration meeting? That's going to be incredible. But yeah, simplified introduction of who I am.
Yeah, that was good.
We still have some time. I mean, we can finish off the hour.
We can just wrap it up.
Or we can just.
I mean, no, we'll wrap it up in the next 10 minutes. You know. Yeah.
So initially we were going to be filming this podcast for like 30 minutes. I guess we both got carried away, and we're just gonna like.
It's cool. I think like an hour wasn't too much, you know. But,
yeah, and yeah, it felt pretty good.
Yeah. So I think like before we end, we want to talk about like what this podcast is gonna look like going forward, and kind of like what Beyond Rock Bottom like really is. And I think like one of the most important things about what we're doing is that Like I think there's like there's a lack of like people that recover out loud, you know. There are a lot of people that do, you know, and I'm grateful for those people because they encourage me, you know. But you know, like I said, I've lost a lot of friends, and I've lost a lot of friends to drugs and alcohol, you know. And
I didn't start losing friends until I got into recovery.
Yeah.
And like in 2024, I lost like 4 friends.
Yeah, man. And you know, I think it's just important to talk about this stuff like it really is, you know.
For sure.
With like just be raw about it, you know. Don't not to sugarcoat it or anything. Just tell it like it really is, and tell like hopefully we can help some other people through this, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. And also too, I'm proud that you and I are doing this together because both of us are in early recovery.
Yeah.
I'm in my first. Definitely. You know, they say early recovery is a year, right? After that, you've been in recovery for a while. I'm not even. You know, we're both early recovery. We're still going through the rawness of it all.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that's so much different about, you know, like I've had little stints of clean time in the past, but like this time around, like in the past, like I was so like ashamed of like my past, right? I was so ashamed of like being an addict, and cause I went pretty low, man, you know.
Yeah.
Like but since I've gotten clean and sober, I found like so much strength in like talking about this stuff openly, you know. And like I've watched it, like me going out to H&I's and like telling my story.
Dude, I see it in you right now, bro. Like I'm super impressed with the way you like introduce yourself and stuff.
I don't know, it's not me, right?
Type shit.
It's definitely, but
whoever that is.
no, but yeah.
So right now we're recording this podcast at 6 p.m. That's when we're going to be recording every week. We're going to start doing them live possibly next week. This is going to be a pre-recorded podcast. We're going to be posting it tonight.
Yeah, and I'm going, like we said, we just started this and we're still getting used to this whole procedure. Going forward, we'll probably get some better equipment and stuff, but right now, like I think like we've been thinking about doing this for a while. Like I have for a while, for sure. I'm assuming you too, but you know, like I think we've just been kind of procrastinating on it, and like the best option is just to get started. So like that's what we're doing, you know. But yeah, I think this one's good.
If any of you guys can relate to anything what we said tonight, being in early recovery, going through the stuff that Zach has gone through or that I've gone through, feel free to subscribe, like the video, comment, let us know what you can relate to, what you don't relate to. If you have any ideas for any upcoming episodes, please let us know. We want to do this for the people. We're here just to like express ourselves, share our experience, strength, and hope, and in the process maybe have some fun. You know, we want to open up new segments as we go forth with our new episodes.